What's up, audio people? Today I'm going to make a quick video just to show you how I dialed in the guitar tone for this song and then how I mixed it. And I'm just going to explain my general approach when I mix middle guitars and then show you some specific things I did for this song in particular. But before any of that, let me go ahead and show you the tone that we're going to be working with today. And here's that guitar sound by itself. So, as you can see, this is 4 guitar tracks. I'm going to bypass all the mixing, which is a lot less than it looks. And I'm going to show you what I started with, which was just these 2 tracks here of my Bogner Überschall going into an impulse response. So that's the guitar tone that I started with when I initially recorded this, and I wanted to add another amp to it, and I decided on a dual rectifier, and instead of reamping through mine, I used the Dual Rec 5 from the Mark Lewis Tone Hub pack, which is my favorite Tone Hub pack, and that sounds like this. So as you can hear, it's very opposite of the Überschall tone. I felt like they would complement each other really well, and I feel like I would be able to blend it in with the Überschall to kind of fill in the gaps of tonalities that the Überschall didn't have. But naturally, because one is a hardware unit and one is digital, they were completely out of phase, and I will show you how I knew they were out of phase and things to kind of listen for it so you know when things are in phase. But basically, as I bring this in, you'll notice that instead of coming up in volume, like all of the guitars coming up in volume, you're going to hear there's going to be frequencies that disappear, some things add weird, the mid-range gets kind of like, I call it like warbly, like it doesn't sound cohesive. And when things are out of phase, those are like the biggest indicators, basically like volume drops. And you'll hear that as I bring these tracks here up. So you'll notice like the low end basically goes away, and you just get a bunch of weird artifacts that don't sound good. And so first thing I did was get them in phase by using, lo and behold, the in phase plugin from Waves. And when I did the whole analysis on it, I'm not going to get into that. Basically, just know how to use this plugin. I had to phase flip them and then bring them back 11 samples to get them in phase. And now, when I bring these tracks up, you'll hear that they just add with the Überschalls as opposed to frequencies coming out or away. And I can basically now bring this up as loud as I want, and I'm not going to lose any information. So now it's purely additive, and they're in phase. And this was the balance that I settled on, and I thought it sounded good. Next thing I did was take out some harsh frequencies between the two. They were sitting in some different regions, so I did them separately. This is what I found for the Überschall. This is the same EQ here. And then this is what I found for the rectifier tracks. And that's just something I like to do because if I took some of these frequencies out of the rectifier, like if I did this on here, you know, these frequencies may not be harsh in the rectifier tracks, and so now I'm taking out things from the rectifier that are actually pleasing. And so that's why those are done on the individual ones. Now getting to the actual guitar bus, the first thing I did was throw on this Pro Q3 and did some general shaping, carving out some low end, carving out some high end, carving out some mid range to make it all fit into the mix. I would have done all of this in the context of the mix, but basically I'm going for getting rid of enough mid range to let the bass come through. I kind of like to go the high end. You'll see when I do the playback to have it naturally roll off with where the EQ curve is. And then just cleaning up some stuff, some mud here and some nasty mid-range. And I will bring all of these in one at a time and show you what they're doing. You'll notice the low end's going to tighten up a lot, and then we're going to get a lot less harsh fizz on top. So basically just cleaning up the entire track, making it sound a little bit less abrasive and more clear. Next thing I did was Classic Pro MB, where this is really only working on the palm mutes, just to stop them from overwhelming mainly the master bus compressor. You'll see it's not really doing much until those palm mutes come in. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm going for with that, just really taming palm mutes. Next thing I did was add my dynamic duo of cleaning up harshness with Soothe and BX Refinement. And this is basically the best way to make your high gain guitars clear. They're the best tools for it these days, and they're both used pretty subtly, especially Refinement, but I'll bring them in, you'll hear. I say subtle, that's not subtle at all, but it's not, I mean subtle in the way that it's not taking away from the guitar tone, it's strictly making it more clear. I basically just dial in this depth knob until I feel like I'm only taking away harshness, and sometimes it can sound pretty drastic, like I'll see it coming down to like -6, but I don't feel like I'm losing any tone from the guitars. Same thing with BX Refinement. All I really do is just turn up this damping until I think it sounds a little bit less harsh. This one's much more subtle than Soothe. And so now I feel like I have very clear, a very clear high gain guitar tone. You can hear individual notes, especially on these like sections where I'm playing like open notes and letting them ring out. Without those two plugins, that section sounds awful, to be honest. It's extremely hard to distinguish individual notes. You bring these in, and it's much more clear. Next thing I did was add Trans-X, just so at the beginning of sections, you'll notice I just get a little bit of a bump, like sections like this. When it starts, it just kind of makes the guitars just poke through for an extra second. That little movement, that's it. You can get the same thing with a compressor. I just like to use this. At least that's what I use on this mix. Sometimes I use a compressor. It's just whatever works. And so that was how I initially mixed these guitars. And that's kind of my general approach for high gain guitars. Kind of just EQ some stuff, use this multiband if I need to, clean up the harshness, and add some extra impact if I feel it. But then after getting all of that and then listening to it in the context of a mix, there's a few things that I felt like I was missing. The first thing was I felt like the mid-range wasn't coming through very well. And so whenever I feel that, I have this preset with the Fatso, and it's literally everything's bypassed except it's on tranny and it's on this warmth of 4. And you'll notice when I bring this in, it does get louder. So try to take that into account. But notice what it does to the mid-range. It makes it much more prominent and adds this like push to the guitars that I really enjoy. And I'll show you that in context. I will show you that in context with the whole mix, and I'll do it in a busy section so you can kind of hear. It really helps the guitars come through more and gives the guitars what I felt like they were lacking. You notice when I bypass it, the guitars kind of fall into the back of the mix, like they almost sit behind everything, and this just kind of helps bring them forward. And obviously the volume boost helps with that, but it's much more in those mid-range frequencies. So whenever I feel like the guitars are sitting too far back in the mix, this preset here usually solves that for me. If not this, then something like Saturn from FabFilter usually works as well. I'll distort just certain sections of the mid-range to help bring it forward. And then after that, I added this SSL 4000, just boosting some top end because I felt like the guitars were not significantly, but they were darker than everything else, and I wanted this presence boost. And then after all of that, I felt like they were just a dB too quiet. And so I turned them up an extra dB, and that was the final thing I did for these. And I think they rip in this song. So yeah, that is my general approach to mixing guitars and some specific things I did for this song. I hope you guys found this video useful. If you want any more tutorial videos, for example, maybe how I get some of my drum sounds, or if you want like a bass tutorial, yeah, if you guys want to know how I do anything else, just leave it down in the comments and I'll make a tutorial video for it. Thanks for watching. Leave your comments down below, and I'll see you guys next time.